Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Another day, another big dog for the Georgia Bulldogs in the 2024 class. This time it is four-star offensive tackle Nyier Daniels, Kirby Smart, and Tracy Searles going up to the Northeast again and landing another monster offensive lineman. Again, 6'8", 340 pounds. People ask why Georgia can just retool. How can Georgia lose all these NFL draft picks and still be the best team in college football the next year? It's because they bring in recruiting classes like this. If you guys are keeping track at home, that is in the last, 10 days. We have Michael Ewini from the state of Texas. He goes 6'6", 305 pounds. Daniel Calhoun, 6'7", 335 pounds. We just landed Joseph Ajone, who is out of Texas. He's 6'4", 275 pounds on the defensive line. And now we're talking Nyier Daniels, 6'8", 340, four-star offensive tackle from the state of New Jersey. And they might not even be done in the next couple days because they're trending for a couple other guys that we'll talk about later. Again, before we get into Nyier Daniels and what he brings to the program, just want to say thank you to the Georgia fans. We've talked a lot of Georgia football, all the Go Dogs in the comment section. Kind of firing me up. I'm not even a Georgia fan, but you guys getting me fired up and supporting the boys. Really do appreciate that. So if you do enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel, trying to break down as many of these commitments as I can for you guys. And let's get into Nyier Daniels, who, again, very similar conversation we had with Daniel Calhoun. 6'8", 340, phenomenal athlete. And when you turn on the tape, you see the footwork, you see the athleticism, and they ask their tackles to play in space. Guys like Daniel Calhoun, Nyier Daniels, Michael Ewini, all show in their high school film that they can play in space and be kind of athletic tackles while also having that just massive, massive size. Georgia continuing to add talent but also depth to both sides of the football on the trenches. And the conversation with this offensive line, and we had it, and so I won't go too far into it because I know a lot of Georgia fans have already heard me say this, but it seems like these guys are just trusting the process and the development that happens in Athens, right? I mean, a lot of times it's hard for teams to land this many top-tier offensive linemen because they want to go in and find an easy path to play. Guys like Amarius Mims is probably the best example. Amarius Mims comes in as a five-star offensive tackle. I mean, a offensive tackle that probably would have started on almost every single Power 5 team in the country last year. He plays a lot last year, but he hit the portal. He decides to come back, kind of trust that process, and now he's going to play year 3, and you're taking a look at potentially a top 10 draft pick in the 2024 class. And what did he do? He trusted the process of the development, and hey, I might not play year 1, year 2, but when it comes to playing year 3, year 4, I'm going to be ready, and I'm going to be an NFL caliber offensive lineman, defensive lineman. You could really fill in any position you want. Now, let's talk a little Nyier Daniels because, again, a really exciting cat, and you get into the film, and the first thing you see is playing that left tackle spot, really good in space. You're going to see him get out in space, go find a second-level defender, and put him in the dirt. But it's crazy to see a 6'8" frame be this athletic and be able to find bodies at the next level. And then the funniest part is, and again, I would love to be this kid's high school head coach because it gets so easy. Now we're just going to put him at right tackle. Pretty much when you watch the film, whatever side they're going to run the football to, they're going to put Nyier Daniels there and just run behind him. And it seems to be a pretty easy recipe, right? We're going to run to the right side. We're going to run behind big Nyier Daniels at that right tackle spot, and he's just going to pave the way for a touchdown. And again, really good get off, plays with good pad level, puts the guy in the dirt. Whatever side they're running the football to, that's where Nyier Daniels is going to be. But again, you just got to love the film. Every single rep you see is pretty much him putting someone on the ground. I love how he gets off the football again and plays low. That's like the hardest thing for some of these young cats to do is when you're 6'8", it's hard to fire off the football and keep low pads. He really does a good job of that. And you love the frame, 6'8". And we don't need to, I mean, pretty much if you want to go watch this like 7-minute highlight of him just putting people in the dirt, I highly advise it. I just did a couple minutes ago. It's a blast. But I want to talk a little bit more about what this class looks like and continue to hammer home the point of what makes this Georgia program so special. This is their 25th commitment. It doesn't sound like they're done. We'll take a look at some of the other targets. But what's so special is a lot of programs, including my Michigan Wolverines, are struggling to fill a class like this because we already have I think we have 25 guys, and we're kind of tapped out because a lot of players don't necessarily want to go to a class that is this full with so much talent. Georgia continues to get guys because they trust that process of I might not play year 1, year 2, but I'm going to be playing year 3. And another thing you got to talk about, if you're Nyier Daniels, Daniel Calhoun, Michael Ewing, an offensive lineman at Georgia, even if you're not playing on Saturdays, the best practice you're getting does not come on Saturdays. It comes every single day when you're working against the best defensive line in the country. They know they're going to Georgia and they're going to get better. You're taking a look at the number 1 class. You have 25 commitments. Oh, I will have the conversation about the wide receivers in a second. But what I want to focus on is just the depth of this class combined with top tier talent, right? You have the number 1 player in the country in Dylan Raiola. You have the number 1 cornerback in Ellis Robinson. But look how deep this class is. Like, you're scrolling down the list and it's just top 100 national guys after top 100 national guys. The depth of this class is where Georgia wins national championships, right? It's nice to get all the 5 stars, but you have to fill in a complete team. When you talk about not rebuilding but reloading, it comes with the depth of these classes, and that's what Georgia does. We're still scrolling, and we're still in the top 100 of national prospects. Daniel Calhoun, what? Not even a top 10 commit for Georgia, and he's a top 100 national prospect. Now, here's the fun part for Georgia, is they're still it doesn't seem like they're done anytime soon. I want to talk about a few guys that we haven't talked about. Justin Williams, 5-star linebacker. Apparently, Georgia making a lot of traction with him. It seems to be Oregon and Georgia battling it out for his commitment. Oregon just landing a linebacker today in this class. Maybe that kind of opens the door for Justin Williams to come to Georgia. Brandon Baker, I still wouldn't rule him out. I know Georgia's filling up this offensive line room, but getting back to our point, like, these guys know I'm going to come in and I'm going to get developed. And whether I play year 2 or not, doesn't really matter in terms of me getting to the NFL, because when I do take the field for Georgia, I'm going to be the best version of myself. Scrolling down the list, I want to talk about a few other guys. Aiden Breland and LJ McCray, especially with the defensive line, and we've talked about this, if you are an elite caliber defensive lineman, you're going to want to go check out Georgia. And Georgia kind of swings the biggest stick when it comes to recruiting these defensive linemen. LJ McCray, you're going up against a bunch of Florida schools. What did Jordan Hall get up there and say? I came to Georgia because I know Georgia develops defensive line. I saw that quote. So maybe LJ McCray, I know Florida and Florida State kind of leading with that one. Certainly wouldn't rule out Georgia. Aiden Breland, I think, is kind of I think Georgia is the inside track. And then the last guy I want to talk about before we talk about the wide receivers is going all the way down the list to an early visitor in Marquise Easley, who's also trending to Georgia. 6'6", 335 pounds, another massive, massive frame that might be added to this Georgia offensive line group. And you're looking at, again, the best offensive line in the country, continuing to get talent to put in that chamber in terms of development. Now, I want to have the conversation about this wide receiver room, which I still like. I think you're in a good spot with. I like guys like Nikar and Tuggle. I want to have the conversation about you go back up to guys like Mike Matthews, a Georgia kid. I know Clemson's in it for him. I know Tennessee's in it for him. I think when you have Dylan Raiola locked up, I think that becomes a lot more of a optimistic place to come to Georgia. When you know you're going to have that number 1 quarterback throwing you the football, you're going to be competing for national titles. I think that does a lot in terms of attracting top talent. A couple other guys to note, Jordan Ross, I said he reminds me of Nolan Smith. Not really sure. I know Georgia's in the mix, and you're talking about Georgia being in the mix for pretty much every 5-star according to 24/7 Sports. KJ Bolden from Buford also in the mix for, probably leading for, and then Edric Houston sounds like an Ohio State-Georgia battle. And we talk about having that number 1 class in the country, Ohio State and Georgia kind of pulling away. KJ Bolden and Edric Houston kind of suddenly become like 2 really big pieces if you really care about having that quote-unquote number 1 class. KJ Bolden and Edric Houston, 2 guys that are Georgia, Ohio State, it seems like, and we'll see who's able to get it done. You got to like Georgia's chances having them in-state at Georgia, going to Buford. Dylan Raiola, the quarterback for Buford now, also worth noting. For Georgia fans, you got to feel just so good about what you've seen on the field the last couple of years, what you're seeing on the recruiting trail, and then what you're going to see in 2023. Obviously, very exciting as well. Appreciate you guys always checking out the boys. Again, go Dogs in the comments section. I absolutely love the energy from the Georgia fans. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.